very successfully doing at different times with our temperamental yet effective Hugo Live. Okay, and we are live in 4 minutes. Yep, no one can deny it. No one can deny what's happening. Many are trying. Yep. Here we go. All right, on this cold Tuesday, and it's going to be cold the whole week. Well, certainly over the next 2 days, excuse me. Certainly over the next 2 days. That much we know. That much you can't deny. Yes. Yep, that is exactly right. I'm going to reach out to Elon. What a day yesterday. That was just amazing. Really, really amazing. Wow. Folks, gives you pride again. America is back. I love that. Finally, no, don't have to be embarrassed anymore. But we're going to address what's going on in our situation, our neck of the woods. So, whoop, there we go. Okay, we are 3 minutes out. 3 minutes. I know, 100%, Jr. It was very emotional. Gives you chills. As I was describing, once again, hearing the national anthem, what America is all about. God, I mean, what we have been through and continue to be through in this country. Well, in the state, as a matter of fact. It's just, and I'm going to touch on it because I know there are some people that they're fearful and they shouldn't be. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to be live coming up in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And I believe once we are live, again, I want to just check the forecast. It's not friendly for Road Patrol Live, I'll tell you that much. But yesterday, you have to take it a day at a time. Yesterday was a very joyous day and an emotional day. It was an emotional day. Finally, what America is all about is being in the process of being restored. All right. Well, right now it feels like 12 degrees outside. It's going to get worse tonight. So there's that. Tomorrow, high of 20, but sunshine, but low of 8. But then we start to break out of this. Thursday, we climb to 32 degrees, freezing. I see 30s for this week, and then going forward. And then next Wednesday, 39, almost 40. So, but this is the cold time. All right, we are standing by. JR is going to give us the cue to go live with the real news. And I'm going to lay out for you folks everything that is happening right now on this Tuesday. As listen, no question about it. Difficult time of year to be in this part of the country. It is just the cross we bear. This is the tough month. But at least we have a change in Washington right now. At least we have the right person who can navigate. And I want to touch on that because I understand there's a lot of people that are uncomfortable and nervous, and there we are, folks, at 106. America is back. This is the real news. It is on this Tuesday, the first full day of America back. Now we're live right now on AM 1380, 99.9 FM. Now we're also live. Wait, there's more. Yes, you can listen online at the website, dpetro.com. And then, but you can also listen and watch with video on our Facebook page. And then also right on our YouTube page as well, and an X. So Facebook, X, and YouTube, you can watch, and right now you can listen. Folks, this portion of the program, America is Back. This portion of the program, and it's brought to you by Propane Plus. Propane Plus. Now remember, they're the experts in energy, and propane is a source of energy for everyone. Propane Plus, Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Give them a call today. And they are, what a fantastic company, 401 885 4209. Or in Massachusetts, 508 252 3359 for Propane Plus heating and cooling. You can depend, you can, on Propane Plus. 3 generations. They're available 24/7, 7 days a week. That's what it means. Online billing. You can also check out their website. They have a very, what I would call, user-friendly website, and it's propaneplus.com. You just type in your zip code, residential or commercial. You can depend on Propane Plus. Call them today for all your propane needs. 401 885 4209, or in Massachusetts, 508 252 3359 for Propane Plus. Folks, as always, visit our website, which is depetro.com. depetro.com, which is brought to you by the Cowesett Inn, 226 Cowesett Avenue in West Warwick. Remember, lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. I was there on Saturday. We went to just go for an hour. We ended up spending 4 hours there in front of the fireplace. And it's perfect this time of year. Great service, delicious food. We had nice cold drinks. The Cowesett Inn, 226 Cowesett Avenue, West Warwick. And don't forget, pop in. All the mugs are gone, by the way. All the mugs are gone. But pop into the market at Cowesett, where then they also have prepared food. They have different gourmet items. It's right there, and it'd be perfect. They have hot chicken soup. They have chicken soup you can take home. The Cowesett Inn in the market at Cowesett, 226 Cowesett Avenue in West Warwick. Now, folks, I want to speak to some of you because I have heard from a number of people that follow our live stream coverage of Road Patrol, and I'm not oblivious that some people are saying, I've heard from them. Now, some contact me and message in a respectful manner, and give respect, get respect. Other people, not so much. But I'm not oblivious. Some people have said one of the things I like about what you do is there's no politics involved. It's strictly crime, street crime, and so forth. But okay, and I understand that. And that is absolutely true, by the way. When we're out covering a story, it's not a matter really of an elected official or anything like that. So I'm not oblivious to that. However, that said, what you have to understand, we can't ignore, especially if certain crimes are allowed to be perpetrated because of political policies that are in place or not in place. So it does come hand in hand. I want to say this, and I have been saying it. I truly mean it. We adapt very well. We adapt well. But yesterday was just a day for the ages. Yesterday, what the rest of the world is watching, and don't forget, the rest of the world is watching. What the rest of the world is watching, and our adversaries and our allies, is, regardless of what you think, our doctrine of peace through strength. It's just the world that we live in. And I want to go back to when President Carter was in office, and then he left office, and the hostages were really destroyed any sense, the Iranian hostages, any sense that he was going to have of a normal presidency. He became like enslaved at the White House. He couldn't travel anywhere he went. you remember? I mean, at the time, I was in grammar school like many of you, but the people had the yellow ribbons, and it was a big deal. And Reagan came in, and and Reagan, it was a situation where he was new, and the rest of the world and world leaders didn't know really much about him or anything about him. And at that time, we were in very tense relationships with what was the Soviet Union, and still the Cold War, and something very dramatic happened as soon as Reagan came into office, and that was the strike by the air traffic controllers. And Reagan warned them, and Reagan told them, if you go on strike, you're going to be fired. You're not going to shut down our nation's airports. So I'm giving you a chance now. This is not a well thought out idea. If you go out on strike, you will be terminated. Period. Nothing else to talk about. That's it. What happened? Picket lines, union, we're out on strike. What did Reagan do? Boom, fired him. That showed years later in the history books, when they looked at that demonstrated to world leaders, this guy means what he says. He didn't keep delaying. He didn't say, maybe we'll go a little bit longer. Firm. You do this, boom, and you're fired. That is, unfortunately, but that is the world we live in. Now, right now, and over the next several days, weeks, months, President Trump will be challenged, will be tested. And what are they going to be looking for? World leaders. We have adversaries. Iran, China, North Korea. Russia's not our ally. Russia's not an ally. We have enemies. But what you need to understand, and people need to understand, and I try to explain this because I've heard from a lot of people that say, I love watching Road Patrol, but I don't like any of the politics. What you need to understand is we, in our part of the country, we are, as I was watching yesterday, you really, to me, it just showed just how out of step Rhode Island and Massachusetts are with the rest of the country. The fact that we don't have any representation there. The fact that the governors of Rhode Island and Mass boycotted the inauguration. Governor McKee, and I understand right now, there are people that always make excuses. Oh, people vote Democrat. Oh, people, you're not recognizing what's going on. People are not oblivious to what they're seeing in other states that run far more efficiently and far more effectively. And if you were listening to President Trump yesterday, if you were listening to Elon, McKee, Healy, they don't get it. They don't understand it. The train is leaving the station. What people, and believe me, folks, this is lost at the Rhode Island State House. They're not, the system that they are using, the model, it's not an effective model. It's not working. It's the opposite of working. As a matter of fact, Governor McKee, his style of leadership, it's not as if he's excelling in certain areas and other areas not so much. Think of when you were a student in school. Maybe you were good in math, maybe you were good in science, but then you struggled in English or foreign language. Governor McKee he's struggling in everything. This is a governor F's across the board. Healy's actually the same way. Massachusetts is not in sync. Massachusetts is different because they have Boston. They have other things, but they have the city of Boston. They have the universities. They have the top education public school system in the country. Mass, it's not exactly linked with Rhode Island, but what people need to understand are several things. Number one, if you are a Trump supporter in our area, the days of apologizing are over. There's no more of this. He's the president. Channel 10, some people were not happy. And when does this nonsense end? What are you talking about? Why don't you point out the fact? Channel 10, oh, there were protesters yesterday. These are the same. They're socialists. They're communists. They are the person who is the spokesperson is like a trans nutcase. He was leading the Free Palestine movement. He was carrying. I remember being in front of RISD's, walking around with the sign "Gays for Gaza." Do you have any idea what they do to people who are gay in Gaza? They throw them off a roof of buildings. None of that is highlighted. Governor McKee didn't attend because we had 2 inches of snow. Folks, they don't even recognize what's coming. But I want to touch on this, the citizenship, and this is coming under fire. And President Trump wants to revoke it. But I want to put it in real terms because obviously I'm telling you right now, you're not going to have anyone in the local media break it out for you. There's certain things they talk about and there's certain things they don't talk about, and they won't talk about it. But I want to stay on schedule. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Kids Club. That's right, Kids Club, perfect. Kids Club on the Pike. What do they have? Birthday parties, before and after school programs, preschool programs. Kids Club on the Pike. It's right off of 295. It's right on Plainfield Pike. They, again, before and after school care, preschool, half and full day programs for preschool ages 3 to 5, before and after school care, providing transportation before and after care for children 5 to 12, and available for private rental, entire facility for birthday parties and other events, like a sports team. Kids Club on the Pike, right off at 295. And, okay, maybe you don't want to have a birthday party and have a bunch of 11-year-olds running around inside your house. Kids Club on the Pike. Call them 401-443-5336. And then you can also find them on Facebook. It's Kids Club on the Pike, and online, kidsclubonthepikeri.com. Well, folks, again, good afternoon. I want to touch on this citizenship because a bunch of attorney generals want to fight it. And something that I don't hear or see explained by our local media, by design, by the way, they leave it out. Gabe Amo listing, oh, this happened yesterday and this happened yesterday. What part of he has no juice in DC. Seth Magaziner has no juice. They're on the outside looking in. We deserve representation, both Rhode Island and Mass. This is insanity. We need someone there on our behalf. And Seth Magaziner to me, he is the worst. He doesn't even live in the 2nd district. But I want to talk about this citizenship thing because it's not being framed properly. No surprise. And I don't hear any local media. And you watch when they do the coverage on this, they won't even bring up the cost. They're not going to, our local media. And by the way, here's a spoiler alert. They all voted for Harris. They all voted for Harris. When I remember in 2020 attending a Raimondo COVID briefing, and someone on her staff, and didn't mean it in a jerky way or a mean way, you see these people every day, you start to chat, get to know them a little bit, and someone on the staff, this was after a briefing, and we were chatting, and they said, we were all talking, meaning I think some of the people on the staff, and we realized and said, do you realize you're the only member of the local media that we know is voting for President Trump coming up in the November election? Now, they didn't mean it in a negative way. I didn't take it as an insult. I was very clear who I was supporting. He was unsuccessful in that election against Biden. But my point is, folks, it wasn't lost on me who the local media supports. But here's the part that they won't talk about. This whole business of citizenship. This comes back to when Sabina Matos was chosen. Of all the people McKee could have chosen, of all the people he could have chosen, And he chose someone who, when she was the head of the Providence City Council, Sabina Matos, now the lieutenant governor, she led the effort to defund the police. And her only work experience was assistant manager at a Dollar Tree store. And she believes that has paved the way for her to have experience handling a $14 billion budget. And I argued, well, wait a minute. I could see if she was the actual manager of the Dollar Tree store. But if she was just the assistant to the manager at the Dollar Tree store, I think the one on Branch Avenue, if we follow that chain of command, doesn't that mean that the manager of the Dollar Tree on Branch Avenue would actually be better qualified than her? I think you understand where I'm going with this. But it goes back to, I was still attending the briefings when Governor McGreed took over, and then I was there when then she took over. He was still doing them a lot until he went to war with the press, because Channel 12 blew up and exposed the whole ILO controversy and then the investigation. But at that briefing, Sabina Matos, this was spring of 21, she was saying that when someone arrives from Guatemala or another South American country, if you will, when they arrive at Green Airport, the moment they arrive on, the runway, the landing, the moment they step off that plane and walk into the Sunland terminal, that they are, and this was her quote, a Rhode Island citizen. And I clarified it. A Rhode Island citizen? I've never heard of that. There's no such thing, as a matter of fact. Notice, no one followed up on that, by the way. This was carried live. 10, 12, everybody. No one followed up. Like, no, wait a minute. There's no such thing as a Rhode Island citizen. You could be a Rhode Island resident, but you're not. There's no such thing as, and no one said anything. Why don't you think they said anything? Because they go along with this nonsense. You may be a resident of the state of Florida. You may be a resident of Massachusetts. If you're not a resident in Rhode Island and you attend URI or Rhode Island College, you have to pay more money. The colleges do it all the time. If you're not a resident of California and then you want to attend UCLA, what have you, you have to pay the out-of-state tuition rate. So we do have residents of states. In Florida, there's a lot of people, they're a Florida resident 6 months and a day. And they track it, and that's how then they don't pay taxes for the other state that they're in. And a lot of people move to that. But you're only then an American citizen. There's no such thing. She actually made it up. And the part about it that I still will never understand is, not only did she make it up, but why was I the only one asking about it? But that's ludicrous. As I was saying earlier on the radio program, if you're a woman and you're, almost ready to give birth, but you decide to go to Cancun for a few days to relax, and then the baby arrives 2 weeks early, and you actually deliver birth in Cancun, that doesn't, the child is then not a Mexican citizen. The whole family then doesn't move to Cancun. There's no other country that follows that. So, but here's the part you're not going to hear anyone talk about. There are women that are 8 and 9 months pregnant. And what do you think they do? They travel to not only the United States, visa, work visa, travel visa, what have you, but they come to Rhode Island. They come into our area. Now, we're not immune from that, by the way. This goes on everywhere. Someone was telling me how, like, Russia had a full program. Russia was sending pregnant Russian women to Florida, and they show up at the hospital. But let's just stay close to home here. They show up at women and infants, and maybe they're about to give birth. Maybe they're a few weeks from birth. Obviously, number one, they don't speak English. Number two, no health insurance. Take a look in the mirror. Who do you think pays for that? You do. I do. We do. And then why are they here? They're here because then they give birth at women and infants. And then what do they say? Well, little whoever, Emilio, little Jose, little Hector, little whoever. Well, they're now an American citizen. So not only is the child and the mother staying, in comes, uncle, so forth, and the father, or whoever claims to be the father, and then the sibling, and then the whole crew comes in here. That's not, and where I agree on this, and I think it will be battled in the courts. But in my eye, that's not an American citizen. They're gaming the system. They're gaming the system. No. Now we're going to wait and see. It will be seemingly decided in the courts. But here's the part that you should pay attention to is, I believe, if our local media and elected officials, if they want to be honest about it, at least get into the cost. What is the cost of that? What does that cost? What is just the birth cost? Now they're here. By the way, if the child is born to women and infants, then they get all the WIC and everything else that goes along with it. They get all the care packages. They get everything. Oh, am I saying I want the newborn infant and the mother, tossed out, and then suddenly they're at the Providence train station? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is we can't have, there are people that are manipulating the system. And what is lacking with our local media is they don't highlight what is the cost of that. What is the cost of that? As a matter of fact, and I've been saying this for a while, but I believe both the Massachusetts Republican Party, but especially the Rhode Island Republican Party, if you really want to make an argument, they should do it on the real cost. What does it cost to educate all these children in Pawtucket who are not citizens? What's the cost per pupil? Let's see real money. What's the cost? All those children that are in the Providence schools don't speak English. They're not supposed to be here. Their parents are not supposed to be here. We're feeding them. We're educating them. We're running this very expensive daycare. Some of the children are $22,000 per pupil. That does not include all the food and everything else. $22,000. So I understand that the teachers union likes it because it just keeps all these pupils in the school. But I believe what really needs to be broken out is what is the cost, because it's hundreds of millions. I also want to touch on, and folks, this portion of our program. Now, if you're having a problem, especially in this cold weather, by the way, but Modern Mechanical, if you're having a problem, let's go through the list. Boiler installation, but they do boiler repair and maintenance. It's freezing out. It's going to continue to be cold. If you have a boiler problem, or maybe you have a furnace, you need furnace repair and maintenance, Modern Mechanical, Richard and his team, that's what they do. That's what they do. Just like when they describe the Americans, the impossible is what we do best. That's Modern Mechanical. I don't know about impossible, but heater repair and maintenance, furnace repair and maintenance, water heater repair and maintenance, boiler repair and maintenance. With this type of cold weather, whether it's residential or commercial, you need everything working as effectively as it possibly can. You need Modern Mechanical. Call them today. Now, if you're listening right now and you're having a problem with your heating system, call them 401-441-5442. I share their Facebook page. They're right on Jefferson Boulevard. It's Modern Mechanical. Folks, good afternoon. I want to mention and a couple of different examples where, and what I want you to understand is the methods, the model that is being used by our local elected officials. It's an inefficient model. It's laughable the people that were criticizing that Elon Musk was there yesterday, that Mark Zuckerberg of Meta was there yesterday, that Jeff Bezos was there. What do the three of them have in common? All totally self-made, clearly all brilliant. Self-made, brilliant billionaires merging and utilizing the brain power of our high-tech sector. By the way, none of them unionized. None of them controlled by unions. But why would we not utilize the brain power that we have in that Elon Musk has the brain power in order to, they're going to put a spacecraft on Mars. My my point is, the three of them, just those three, there were other billionaires that were there, but those three, did they get there by being incompetent? Did they get there by being inefficient? Let's look at Governor McKee and the bridge. So last week, the state of Rhode Island fired two state troopers, two young rookie troopers that made a mistake and posted footage from the DOT camera on Snapchat. And as a result of that, two of them who had already completed the academy, they were terminated, not suspended, not lesson learned, terminated, fired. How many people have been fired from DOT since the bridge? Zero. How would you describe the McKee handling of the bridge? I would describe it as the biggest local government screw-up failure of our lifetime. And actually even more so than the credit union crisis of the early 90s. And look at the data breach. All these people, we have to ban TikTok. China could get all our personal data. What do you think is happening with the incompetence of the McKee administration, where 650,000 adults in the state have had their personal privacy sold online and exposed? And what did all those people have in common? They trusted the McKee administration and they trusted the state government. I was very glad in the inauguration when President Trump talked about the embarrassment that we have witnessed on the West Coast with these fires. That is complete irresponsible incompetence of elected officials, whether it's the mayor of LA, whether it's that fire chief, whether it's the deputy fire chief, whether it is the governor. Complete incompetence. Do you have any idea? Pacific Palisades, of which I've been to many times, absolutely beautiful. What those people pay in taxes, what they pay and contribute to the city of Los Angeles, to the state of California, and then their street, their home, their neighborhood, their whole world is on fire, and there's no water in the hydrants. That is complete incompetence. Don't you see the parallels? McKee, Newsom, the mayor of LA, Karen Bass. It's a failed model. The same thing with the governor of Massachusetts, spending $1 billion to put up illegals in hotels and all these shelters and everything else. What are you talking about? There's no obligation for taxpayers to pick that up. Folks, do you understand that is lunacy? And the same thing with McKee. He and Matos giving out the driving privileges. I think the biggest insult that just gets accepted is that the state of Rhode Island, McKee and his team, they claim they don't know how many driving privileges they gave out. Complete lie. No one believes that. And it's just accepted. So what you have to understand is this, and to top it off, what does McKee say in his State of the State. We're going after that assault-style weapon ban. Last night, Providence had its first homicide. It was a stabbing. What are you talking about? I talk to police. I talk to police every day, and not one of them have ever said to me, boy, the problem that we have around here is too many legal gun owners have these assault-style weapons. He's not even McKee. He's not even focused on the problem. If you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, there's that great scene where Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt, and he's in there with the scouts, and he goes around the table. What's the problem? And then they give an answer. Next, what's the problem? And then Grady, the head one, says, Billy, I think we're all aware what the problem is. He's like, great, what's the problem? And then, Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt, says, you guys don't even know what the problem is. And then there's rich teams, poor teams, 30 feet of crap, and then there's us. You're not even focused on what the problem is. And that's right now with McKee. He's going to, tax this and tax that and Band-Aid here and Band-Aid there, and we'll do the truck tolls and we'll do all that. It's not even remotely close to running things efficiently, but they ignore what's happening at their own peril. Because I mean, you saw it. You're talking about tapping into the brain power. Why would we not tap into the brain power? We have access to the brain power of Elon Musk. We have access to the brain power of a Jeff Bezos, of a Mark Zuckerberg. Why would we not tap into that to benefit the United States? And in many different ways. But where Governor McKee and Matos, his little lackey, little assistant manager at Dollar Tree, Gabe Amo, talk about an empty suit. Magaziner, is there a bigger empty suit than Seth Magaziner? They don't recognize it's get on board time. This inefficiency there. Seth Magaziner is acting like the election is still going on. The election is over. There are states that are running their states efficiently, very efficiently. That Virginia governor, Glenn Youngkin. Obviously, Florida under Governor DeSantis, the real hero, the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, governor of Tennessee. There are states, as I mentioned, that are doing things the right way. Even in New England, New Hampshire is better run. But not this crowd. They don't get it. All this foolishness, all this waste. They can't even think of this. Governor McKee, they can't even, it's not they can't rebuild the bridge. They couldn't even get anyone to bid on the bridge. That's another level of incompetence. When I told that months ago now, I told that to some people with the Trump campaign. I wasn't offended, but they actually didn't even believe me because it was so absurd. It was. How do you think Elon Musk would react to a state with the governor and the DOT that they're so deeply flawed that no one even bids to rebuild the bridge? That is, and it was, as it was said to me, that is another level of incompetence. Folks, so what you need to understand in this portion of the program is brought to you by Watson Materials. Largest selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island. It's Watson Materials. Call them today, 401-885-0600. 401-885-0600. Request a quote. It's Watson Materials. Remember, landscape lighting, pavers, retaining walls, natural stone, cobblestone. Watson Materials, the most complete selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island. It's Watson Materials. Look for them on Facebook. I share some of their Facebook stuff. It's fantastic. And also online at watsonmulch.com. Folks, my point is, It is time for accountability. It is time for the foolishness to end. Tragically, we are stuck in a part of the country. Governor McKee, and even the homeless thing they can't even do right. Even the homeless thing they can't even do right. I want to remind people, last week, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee, his state of the state was over 1 hour. Why did he do that? Because he's so petty, he wanted to block out and not give, if he had finished at, say, 7:45, 45-minute speech, starting at 7, if he had done that, then the local TV stations were going to run the Republican response. He's so thin-skinned and petty. He thought, no, I'll go over past 8 o'clock. And then Channel 10 didn't even carry the end of his speech. They went into their regular programming. And then none of the television stations, to my knowledge, ended up running the Republican response. That is the pettiness you're talking about. That is someone who purposely starts late. President Trump's inaugural address was 30 minutes. Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee, his state of the state was over 1 hour. It's embarrassing. Even as Dan McGowan last week said, it was 20 minutes too long. I think it was even longer. I'd say it was 30 minutes too long. Folks, what people need to understand, for instance, the homeless situation in the state is certainly problematic. I'm not denying that it's not. Something needs to be done. They certainly aren't doing things effectively. People that are, in fact, homeless aren't, given the proper model and resources. It's not organized. Of course, they have those pallet shelters. They've had those pallet shelters, the Foxy Village, state land behind the Foxy Lady. They've had them since last December. And they're still not open. But here's the thing. Of course they're not open. Because why would the person who botched the bridge, why would the person that botched the data breach? The thing about Governor McKee, if he's anything, he is consistent with his incompetence. He and his staff, they don't have competent people. Competent people don't want to be around someone like that. So I think it's actually healthier to look at, of course, the pallet shelter is a mess. Everything they touch is a mess. They don't have the proper management style. They don't do anything right. So of course they're not going to do something like that right. So, and I'm not immune. I do hear from people. There are, and it's terrible. There are working homeless. There are people that have jobs and they sleep in their cars and they use health clubs to shower in the morning and get ready. Of course, that's terrible. But how much money have we given out to illegals? How much money? Let's talk about that. How much money? If you want to talk about that, and that is terrible, by the way. And of course, if you're a Rhode Island citizen, a resident of Rhode Island, there should be facilities that could help someone like that. But let's go back to how much are we spending to educate the children of illegals that Elorza recruited to come to Rhode Island and are enrolled in the Providence schools. You could certainly argue, and I'm telling you, I know they don't like it, but the illegals, here's what I don't hear anyone in the media say, and I don't even hear, for whatever reason, the Republicans at the State House say. And it's sad and it's embarrassing, but it's true. Illegals are treated better in Rhode Island and Mass than our own citizens, and that is disgraceful. I was I found President Trump in his speeches yesterday, and by the way, I mean, how funny was that with the throwing the pens in? and the indoor parade. And I mean, the whole thing. They mean business. They jumped into action. They are hitting the ground running. They are getting in motion here. But in, excuse me, it's just the polar opposite of especially our Rhode Island elected officials. Hey, Massachusetts, don't get me wrong, they're not exactly in firm shape. Massachusetts, how bad are things in Mass? They're trying to start to pick off Rhode Island companies. Massachusetts should not have that whole business of, the millionaire tax. Bill Belichick talked about that. A lot of players don't want to come in. Whenever you're punishing the people that do well, why do you want to do that? I've never understood that. Of course, the progressives want to do that. But look at the difference of the biggest applause line President Trump got was there's only two genders, male and female. And the media love to point out that during the State of the State, the biggest applause line Governor McKee received was, and once and for all, we're going to ban assault style. What you see two different parallels. And it was just so in your face yesterday how out of step Rhode Island and Massachusetts, how our part of the country is not in step with the rest of the country. And just even like your Channel 10, why are you even giving a microphone to those complete zeros marching around yesterday? Why don't you tell the full story? Why don't you tell the story that the spokesperson is also the spokesperson who was calling Hamas martyrs? It's either laziness or incompetence. But I just, how much longer is our local media just going to continue to go through the motions and try to act as if the way they're running things is okay? It's the opposite. What I saw yesterday, just what a stark contrast our part of the world is, and I'll say Rhode Island and Mass, compared to some of these other states, compared to, again, much larger states that are run much more efficiently, that are going to thrive that much more. It's time for the locals to be held accountable. Folks, this portion of our program is brought to you by Arch Design Builders. Now remember, they specialize in residential design. You're going to notice the Arch difference. Family business prioritizes integrity, quality, family owned and operated, high-end, custom build, customer service. You're really going to notice a difference with Arch. And right now, maybe you're thinking with Arch Design Builders, contact them. Let's have a conversation. Let's dream. Let's show them the space. They have so much experience. They have done the work and are familiar with the best way to get the most out of your space and for the best value. Arch Design Builders. So, and maybe it is for a new kitchen. Maybe it's for a new bathroom. Maybe it's your basement or a deck. Arch Design Builders. Call them today, 401-207-4124. I share their Facebook page. It's a work of art. They're also on Instagram. Arch Design Builders RI.com. Husband and wife team complement each other perfectly, whether it's Roxanne or Ed, who is meticulous, 5-star builder, skill set and integrity. They know what it takes. Making Rhode Island great again. Arch Design Builders. What a difference it's going to make for your home or business. Now, also, I did receive an email from, where is it? Right there. From Colleen. Colleen was saying she wanted the name of the law firm that I was mentioning that I had someone on just the other day. That's Marin, Barrett, and Murphy, Colleen. 50 years combined, Rhode Island, criminal defense experience. Someone's got to represent you. Look for them on Facebook, Marin, Barrett, and Murphy Law Firm, or you can call them at 401 228 8271. Now, folks, good afternoon. And I also want to be clear. I mean, I'm not angry. We know the deal. I think everyone should feel good about what happened. Notice also, there's such a lack of coverage or acknowledgement from our local media with media, how President Biden pardoned all of those preemptive family members who and how come that's not getting the coverage that I believe that it should? And you certainly don't hear any talk. You're certainly not going to get that from the Democrat representatives that we have. So, but I want to just look at some of the headlines right now. There was the homicide last night, and that was a stabbing, as a matter of fact. The how fast? Oh, let me see this. This is great. Fox News learns that Senator Scott Brown, friend of the program, that he's likely to launch a Senate run in New Hampshire. Good. And he's in D.C. today for meetings with the Senate Majority Leader and the chair of the Republican Party. Well, that is great. And New Hampshire certainly deserves to have a New Hampshire deserves to have a Republican. New Hampshire deserves to have representation in Washington, much like we do. And I believe that, number one, they'll put a lot of money in. He's a great candidate. I'm such a fan. And also, as I've said, I believe you will see Charlie Baker, former governor, that he will go after and run for, I think, against that Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. Folks, it has to end. This business of Rhode Island, let's just talk Rhode Island and Massachusetts. This lunacy has to end. We have no representation in Washington. President Trump is in power. Republicans control the Senate. Republicans control the House. Both Rhode Island and Mass. We need some representation down there. Now, I don't know. Patricia Morgan was a good candidate against Senator Whitehouse. We don't know. The next senator who would be up would in fact be Senator Reid. And he's up in, I believe, next year in 26. And I think he's going to, we don't know, but I think he's going to run again. But some dynamic has to change. And if anything, anyone you talk to, Senator Reid is the most valuable senator. He's the most valuable person in Washington that Rhode Island has. Certainly respected the Armed Services Committee. I disagreed with the way he questioned Pete Hegseth. I disagreed with that. But Senator Reid, of everyone in Washington, certainly has the most respect, delivers for the state. And that would be interesting, whether or not he decides to run. Maybe he doesn't like the climate in Washington, or maybe he does stay in Washington. That would be big. You definitely have people waiting in the wings. Seth Magaziner waiting in the wings to run for that seat. You also have David Cicilline waiting in the wings. But what I believe right now at 156 is, folks, something, both Rhode Island and Mass. We need someone with the party in favor. Rhode Island, just talking about Rhode Island was always best served when there was a Republican in the Senate and then when there was a Democrat in the Senate. And conversely, Same thing for the House. So for many years, I mean, Senator John Chafee, the state was better served when you had him and Pell. The current model is not working. The current model at the Rhode Island State House, that they fall in line with the special interests, that they chase away all the private business, where we don't have leaders that are really working as effectively as you would think they could. And they're not serving the people. They're not. I'll tell you who does serve the people, and that is the Queen of Health, Marie, at It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. Stop in and see her. Everything healthy. Now, right now, I see on social media, there's a lot of people that are under the weather and sick. Folks, stop in and support this great local retailer where everything she has is quality. And it's all about health. Diagonally across from Davenport Restaurant, It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. That historic white church. Maybe you've been under the weather. Maybe you had COVID. Maybe you had the flu. Whatever it may be, stay healthy. Unfortunately, we still have weeks to go here with this winter. It's My Health. It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. Now, I do see that Attorney General Peter Neronha is joining other attorney generals in challenging unconstitutional executive order ending birthright citizenship. But as I have said, he's joining 19 other states. So, but one thing about that, where I disagree with the attorney general, that is a Democrat position. I believe there's just, it doesn't make sense to anyone that someone is allowed to enter the country because they're pregnant. And by the way, something that I don't hear mentioned that we've learned from covering this for so long is if a female shows up at our southern border and she claims that she is pregnant, boom, she is guaranteed automatically she is allowed in. There's no pregnancy test. It doesn't matter if she's 70 or it doesn't matter if she is 14 years old. If a female shows up at our southern border and just claims that they're pregnant, they are automatically allowed into the country. Well, folks, listen, that's going to do it for this Tuesday. Check out our website, depetro.com. Still have original stories and videos. Later on, we'll see if something develops. Still a little too cold and icy for Road Patrol. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. We'll be back on the radio tomorrow at 11. Enjoy this Tuesday.